All right, so back when we were talking about using math methods and everything, one of the problems that I gave you guys was this wind chill index problem. And basically what you had to do is enter the temperature and also enter the wind speed. And then it was saying that there's like 3 different ways of calculating the wind chill index. If the wind speed is between 0 and 4, then the wind chill index is just the temperature. If the wind speed is greater than or equal to 45, then you use this. And then in all other cases, you use this wind chill index equal to this other expression. So it wasn't quite fair of me to include that because we didn't know how to do this decision making inside of our programs. All right, so we're going to fix that problem now. So let's go over to Eclipse. Inside of your math and logic project there, we're going to go ahead and create a new class called using conditional operators. All right, so we want that thing to have a main method. We're going to go ahead and finish that. And then let's kind of talk about what these conditional operators are. So we use that for less than, we use this for greater than, we use this for less than or equal to, so that's greater than or equal to, and then there's 2 more that we should look at. 2 equal signs means equal to. Exclamation point equal means not equal to. All right. So for each of these, we cannot have a space between them. All right, and I'm just going to close that. So what do we mean by cannot have a space between 2 parts? Well, can't write as like less than equal to, okay? The language won't recognize that that's an operator. Okay? So we use these to compare a value on the left to the value on the right of this. So value on the left and the right of the operator, and it gives a Boolean value, so true or false. So it tells us if it's either true or false, that, for example, one thing is less than the other. So we're going to go ahead and say int, to get some examples in here, int x equals 10, y equals 100, and z equals 1000. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and create a Boolean smaller equal to x less than y. And just to kind of show you guys what's going on here, we're going to print out smaller. All right, and so what this is doing is it's going to evaluate whether x is less than y, okay? And since x is 10 and y is 100, this is going to be true. So now the value of smaller is true, and when we run this thing, we should see it print out true. There it is, printed out true. Okay, so anytime that you use one of these expressions up here, it's going to give you either true or false as a result. Okay, so why do we care about that? Well, what it allows us to do then is to start making some decisions inside of our programs. Okay, we're going to use an if statement to make decisions inside our code. Okay? And the decisions are going to be about which code should be executed. Okay? So, the structure of an if looks like this. We go if parentheses condition, and then after that, code that will execute if condition is true. Okay? So what does that mean? Let's go ahead and take a look at some examples here. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to say if x is less than 100, then system.out.println x is small. All right? And so the way that we would expect this to execute is it's going to make this decision for us. It's going to check whether x is less than 100. So since x is 10, that is true. And since that's true, it's going to print out x is small. Okay? I'm going to copy that. All right? And I'm going to paste it twice. Okay? And then I'm going to put y in there and z in there as well. And then put y here and z here. So we'll see kind of how this thing executes. Okay? So let me just run that again. Okay, so I still get the same output. I get true, that's from printing out smaller here. Then I get x is small down here. Well, let's see what happens here. We're going to go if x is less than 100, x is 10, so that's true. So it's going to do this instruction. Okay, then it checks to see if y is less than 100. Y is 100, so since 100 is not less than 100, it skips over and does not do this instruction. Okay, z is 1000, z is not less than 100, so again, that's false. So when this is false, it skips over that instruction as well. Okay, so that's how you use an if. There's a part that you can add on to an if, but it's only available like as an add-on. You can't use it as its own thing, and that's called an else. Okay, so else is saying basically like otherwise. So otherwise, let's print out z is big. All right, and if we run that code, we get true again, we get x is small like we would expect, and then we get z is big. All right, so the else is describing what is going to happen. Okay, what is going to happen? In this case, we're going to print out z is big when z is not less than 100. Okay, so that's what else is for. Else tells us what instructions will execute when the condition of an if is false. Okay? All right. So here's kind of a weird thing, and I just kind of want to show you a couple things. So first of all, this formatting is, I think it's good for learning how if is going to work, but it's not usually the way that like you'll see it formatted in a book. So the way this works is, again, we're saying if this is true, then do this. Otherwise, we're going to skip over this. Usually, if you saw this like in a programming book, it would look like this, where the instruction that goes with the condition would be underneath the condition, and tabbed in. Okay, so that's generally how this would work. This else is like linked to this if right here. Okay, and you can't have an else that's just kind of by itself. Okay. So else cannot be there without the if that precedes it. All right. So in other words, if I go down here and I type in else system.out whatever, like it already says to me like you can't have else. Okay. So if I get rid of that and I mouse over this, it says syntax error on token else, delete this token. It doesn't even tell me like you got to have an if before it. It just says you can't have else just hanging out there. So else has to follow an if. All right. And you should understand, like I said, the formatting thing here. Okay. If we want more than one instruction inside of a condition, then we have to use brackets to basically like form a body of code. Okay. So to get more than one instruction inside an if or else, right? Use brackets to make a body of code. All right, so let's look at an example of that. So let's just say, for example, that we wanted to go if y is less than 50. Okay, then let me do this one more time here. If y is less than 50, then print out y is small. Okay. But let's say, oh, wait, I forgot to say something about y. So I want to do more than one thing here. I'm going to put a bracket in here. Okay, so kind of follow what I'm doing right now. Put a bracket in there and then hit return. And what the IDE does, what Eclipse does for us, is first of all, it puts that on the next line and indents it one more indent, but it put this ending bracket in for me. So it says, well, this is all the stuff that's going to happen when y is less than 50. Okay, so if I wanted to add more stuff on there, okay, I'm not doing really well here. No, really, it's small. Okay, so I don't know why I'm doing that, but we are. Okay, you can also use those brackets with an else. So if you have brackets, generally what we want to do is we want to go to the at the end of the bracket and then put else, and then put our own set of brackets in there for that else. Okay, so we would say here maybe something like y is big. And then another thing like, but not necessarily, necessarily that big. Okay, so I don't know. Really, I don't really care what you put in there, but just so that you guys get an idea of putting more than one instruction after a condition requires that you use these brackets. Otherwise, it won't group those together. So we got to do that. Okay. So it says x is small, z is big, y is big, but not necessarily that big because it's only greater than or equal to 50.